Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another very interesting Spinosaurus figure to take a look at, and this is yet another unbranded Spinosaurus figure, so it's a very interesting looking Spinosaurus, and I'm actually not going to lie to you guys, I am a huge fan of it. I really like this figure, like a lot. I like it more than the previous kind of unbranded Spinosaurus figure that we had taken a look at. But what's interesting about this figure is, although it's a brand new figure, it seems to have more of like almost like a late 90s, early 2000s sort of like a reconstruction in a way, because you don't really see like the hooked jaw in the head there. You also don't see like the fact that its body is shaped very differently. It's shaped very Jurassic Parkish, so you don't see like that more updated appearance to the body and the positioning of the body. And you also don't have that kind of paddle-like tail that we now associate with Spinosaurus. The sail looks, a little bit different than what we were kind of seeing in the 90s and early 2000s, but still really cool looking. But I definitely will say that ever since Jurassic Park 3 hit theaters, it really pushed Spinosaurus kind of into the mainstream, and we have just been flooded with tons of Spinosaurus figures ever since. But this one, again, is definitely one of the newest and a really cool looking figure overall. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Spinosaurus, it has a really nice looking, almost kind of like a crocodilian type of a look to the head sculpt. And again, I've almost like a little bit of a mixture of like a crocodilian type of a look and like a JP3 sort of a look to the head sculpt of the Spinosaurus. Really nice looking, and I love how kind of broad the snout is. It looks really neat if you ask me. The actual detailing here on the head is beautiful as well. You can see lots of really nice detail is found within the head sculpt of this Spinosaurus. And another area that I'm absolutely in love with, and it's kind of somewhat of a shocker to me, is look how beautifully painted those eyes are. You can see it's kind of like a nice brown, like a reddish brown color that sort of borders around the eye all throughout that eye socket area. And then it's given a really nice green coloration and a nice slit-like pupil, almost similar to the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus as well. And it's gorgeously glossed. Like, you can see that gloss coat is super lifelike, super realistic. So that is a beautiful touch that you don't often see on figures like this that are kind of like unbranded, unknown dinosaur figures. You don't often see such gorgeous paintwork in the eye area, and I really quite like that. I'm also a very big fan of the paint scheme that we have for the figure, as you see like a really nice reddish coloration to the face, and then these kind of stripes. One stripe leads down from the eye, a black stripe, and then stripes across the mouth there. I like that as well. It's a really appealing look, and then you can see it transition to kind of like a white coloration here, of actually pretty darn bright white on the underside of the dinosaur as well. Really nice smooth transition, I would say also. And another very exciting aspect about this figure is it has an articulated jaw. Not only does it have an articulated jaw, but it works really well. Like, it might be one of the smoothest articulated jaws that I've ever seen. It's just really smooth the way it works. There's no issues with it whatsoever. Inside the mouth, you can see that there is a really nice gloss coat. Well, kind of, if the light would actually catch the inside of the mouth. There we go. Now we can see there's some pretty nice looking detail in there, but there's also a beautiful gloss coat, kind of making it look very saliva-like, very lifelike in that aspect. And you can also see that the tongue is painted with a pretty dark red. I'm not a huge fan of the dark red coloration of the tongue, but it's actually nicely painted. There's no sloppiness or anything in that area. You can also see that kind of purplish coloration here on kind of like that skin flap on the side of the mouth. Same deal over here on that side. Really nicely done there as well. But one of my favorite aspects, I think, of this figure would be the teeth. When you look at the teeth, some of the teeth genuinely look like they would be sharp. Like, they look really good, and the actual paintwork of the teeth also looks really good. Like, it really has a very lifelike look to the coloration of the teeth and the way they've been painted. Like, they genuinely look like real teeth, I would say, which is something that you also don't often see on figures like this. And they're really nicely glossed, so they shine like real teeth would. And you can see that there's like variations of color included to the teeth, as we primarily have like an off-white, but some of the teeth even like transition to like a darker color the closer you get to the gums, and they look like that on both the upper and lower jaws, and they're all individually sculpted and individually painted. No sloppiness at all as far as those teeth go. So the mouth area of this Spinosaurus is exceptionally well done. As we start to move back here into the neck, you can see lots of really nice skin wrinkles and stuff going on, some more beautiful texturing to the skin. You can also see this black coloration that is the same black that we see up here. It starts to stripe down throughout the dinosaur and creates kind of like that striped pattern throughout the entire figure. But you can also see kind of like a very big, bulky, kind of hanging skin sort of to the neck right there, and I really like how bulky that looks as well. Again, this figure is in no way, shape, or form accurate to what we now perceive Spinosaurus to look like, but I really just love the appearance of this figure. Again, the very large, thick neck looks super cool. Again, it actually kind of looks crocodilian in the neck region as well, but just generally a very appealing look if you ask me. As we move back here into the body, you can see the shoulder blade a little bit right there. We move down here into the arm, you can pick up on the elbow. Some pretty nice looking texturing to the skin, and it transitions to a darker coloration here in the hand area. You can kind of see like scoots down the fingers, and the nails are painted with a white coloration, and the nails genuinely look sharp too, so that is a really nice aspect of the figure. You don't see like kind of like that larger claw that you usually see associated with Spinosaurus as well. So again, sort of looking like a little bit of like an older style reconstruction of Spinosaurus, as far as like the way the claws are just kind of like your trademark three-fingered theropod claws, but still pretty cool looking. And then coming up into the stomach region, you can see some more really nice looking skin texture throughout, and quite a few different variations of like lighter and darker versions of red are included. You can even see that here in the thigh, as you can see some of the red striping through, and then some more of the black striping down. Up here, you can see some really cool looking scoots that run along the top of the dinosaur, that run pretty much the entire length of the dinosaur, and you can also see some beautiful detailing here in the sail area. Same deal as far as the similar style of scoots that kind of run up the length of the sail throughout the entire sail, and you can also see ridges that run along the top of the sail. And then here on the lower part of the sail, you see this beautiful, very dark red. Then it transitions to a really, really nice looking blue, and then has like a black outline that runs the course of the sail. And throughout all of that, the kind of scoots that run out the length of the sail all have like an individual color. Like they start red here, but then they transition to like a white as they run through the blue. It's just really, really neat the way that they've painted that. And again, really nice and careful paintwork. As you move down into the leg, you can pick up on the hip bone there, as well as some very, very muscular looking legs. You have the kneecap here in the front, super muscular looking calf there as well. And then coming down into the foot transitions back to a black again, and we have some nicely painted nails with kind of like a white or a gray. Actually, they do look a little bit more like a gray. The hands kind of appear to be like a mixture of gray and white, but the feet actually have more of like a gray. One area that is downside, though, is that we do have the dew claws, but the dew claws are not painted because they just always get skipped. I don't know why. Definitely a little bit of a downside there. But then we come back up here into the tail. You can see kind of the skin stretching off of the tail as that leg pulls forward as the dinosaur takes a step. And then we have some nice variation of color as we move out the length of the tail, as we have like lighter and darker shades of red mixed with black, mixed with kind of like this light white coloration that's down there on the underside of the dinosaur. Comes out to a pretty nice looking curve right there. The ridges continue to run along the top of the dinosaur out onto the tail as well. And then looking over here at the opposing side, again, the head sculpt looks gorgeous, just like we had seen previously. Beautifully painted eye, no sloppiness at all. Coming back into the neck, again, that neck looks nice and thick like we had seen on the previous side. Similar looking detail as far as like skin folding and stuff, and just again some hanging skin in the throat region. Once we come down here into the arm, you can see the arm here is a little bit further back in comparison to what we had seen on the previous side as far as the placement of the arm goes. The nails are painted again with that similar coloration. Actually, this hand kind of looks a little bit more like a gray as far as the nail paint goes compared to the white that we kind of saw in the previous hand, but the previous hand does have some nails that look similar to like that grayish coloration, so maybe that was actually just a little bit of like this white coloration here on the underside that got onto the nails over there. But we can also see some more nice detailing here in the stomach region, sort of like the rib cage kind of poking through, some more gorgeous texturing to the skin. Again, we have those scoots that run along the top of the dinosaur. You can see the hip bone as well as some scoots that run along the top of the hip bone. And then some beautiful musculature as we move down this leg. The legs aren't really in any type of a dramatic positioning. They're just kind of ever so slightly different in positioning, as the further leg is a little more forward than the leg that we have over here. Again, nice transition to the darker coloration in the foot. We have the really nicely painted nails with the gray over here as well. Nice scoots down the toes. And then we come back up here into the tail. We can continue to see like the variations of red, the black striping down, and the really nice curve to the tail. The underside also has some pretty nice looking detail overall. Nice detail on the underside of the feet as well. So as far as this Spinosaurus goes, I absolutely love it. A really cool, very unknown version of a Spinosaurus. Again, not in any way, shape, or form an accurate Spinosaurus, but regardless, an absolutely awesome version of a Spinosaurus. Now, as far as this size goes on the figure, it definitely has some pretty significant size to it. So for a length, you're looking at about 13 inches, pretty much right on the dot, actually, or about 33 centimeters. And then for a height to the tip of the snout, even though it might be a little hard for you to see, it's actually a little over 6, actually a tiny bit under 6¼ inches, or around the 15½ centimeter, closing in on 16 centimeter range. And then to the top of the sail, if I can get it in a spot where I can get an accurate measurement, you're looking at about 6½ inches, or about the 16 centimeter range there also, maybe a little bit over. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Spinosaurus, and you can see in comparison to these guys, it almost looks like he's biting the Papo-Rex's face off right there, but you can see in comparison to these figures again that this Spinosaurus definitely sports some pretty significant size, even quite larger than the Papo T-Rex right there. And speaking of Papo dinosaurs, we're going to bring up the elephant in the room, I guess you could say, and that would be the potential of this figure being somewhat of a bootleg of the Papo Spinosaurus, but obviously retooled quite a bit. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't think it is. I actually don't think it's a bootleg at all. I think it definitely was inspired slightly as far as the positioning of the body goes by the Papo Spinosaurus, but there are actually a lot of differences between the two. If you actually look at them, well, first of all, we can see very different positions for the bodies. The head on the Papo Spinosaurus is looking to the right. The head on this version is looking up. The actual appearance to the head on both figures are very different, like vastly different appearances to the head sculpts of both of these Spinosaurus figures. As far as the sail goes, the sail is also quite differently shaped, although you could potentially say that maybe they took the sail from the newer variation of the Papo Spinosaurus and applied that to this figure, and then just kind of used the Papo Spinosaurus, the older version here, as far as the base for the body. That, had crossed my mind at a certain point in time, but when we actually get close and take a look at the two figures together, first of all, even the texturing of the skin on the newest version here is very different than what we see on the Papo version. The area underneath the sail there, you can see has like a row of osteoderms or scutes there on the Papo version. This has a very different appearance to it. The shape of the tail, the positioning of the tail, although it looks similar at first glance, is also quite different in comparison to the Papo version. There's also just generally a different appearance to the tail in comparison to the Papo version. Even if we go into areas like the feet, although the feet look kind of like they would be similar upon closer inspection, they definitely have a very different appearance to them in comparison to each other. And although the arms also kind of appear like they would be similar, you can see looking at the arms that they are also actually quite different. So I think that this figure may have been kind of inspired by the Papo Spinosaurus, but I definitely don't believe that it was bootlegged from the Papo Spinosaurus. So this newest version of the unknown Spinosaurus figure just continues on all the time when it comes to eBay and China and the weird random figures that pop up with no company attached to them. I don't know exactly where these figures come from, but I'm definitely enjoying them. I actually love the fact that I continuously seem to stumble upon these figures. This one I had actually seen on Facebook. Somebody had posted that they had purchased one. Unfortunately, the name of the person that posted that has been a little bit lost to me since. I wish I could remember so I can kind of give him a shout out for pointing this figure out to me. But again, the figure was totally out of the blue. I did not even know it existed, and then finding it on Aliexpress, it again does not have any type of a brand associated with it, but I definitely like the figure a lot, and I'm really enjoying these kind of random figures that seem to pop up from time to time on eBay. And this one might be one of my favorites overall because there's just a lot, in my opinion, to like about this figure. I feel like the sculpt is really, really cool on this. The detailing aspect is really nicely done, and for being a totally unknown figure, has a very appealing look as far as I'm concerned. I love the bulkiness in the neck of the Spinosaurus. I love the head sculpt, even though, again, everything on this figure is pretty far from accurate. But as far as kind of like that late 90s, early 2000s sort of an interpretation of a Spinosaurus mixed with a little bit of a modern look, it's really, really cool looking, and I love the kind of similarities to the head sculpt to like a crocodile It's just really appealing to me overall, and I'm definitely a big fan of the head sculpt, and I love how nicely painted the eyes are. The eyes are so picture perfect and beautifully glossed. The teeth as well. The teeth may be my favorite area in general on this figure, and the articulated jaw again works so nicely. And on top of being so nicely detailed and having a really cool appearance to it, sculpt-wise, it has a beautiful paint scheme. I love the colors of red that they've used on the figure, making it look really flashy. The way they've applied like black stripes here and there on the figure, and then variations of red with lighter and darker tones, looks really cool. The beautiful blue, the very subtle area of blue up on the sail, just gives that sail area a little bit of a flashy appearance, but again in a very realistic way. And one thing that is really impressive, again, as far as this figure goes, that you don't often see when it comes to figures like this, is the fact that the paint is pretty darn carefully done overall. Like, the eyes are really nicely placed, really nicely painted, really nicely glossed. The teeth look exceptionally well done, like very realistic and lifelike as far as the beautiful way that they've been painted, and each and every tooth is so carefully painted. This is just not the type of stuff that you normally see on these kind of unknown figures from China, so it's very impressive as far as this figure goes. I think the only thing, honestly, that it's missing would have potentially been a nice dark wash. I feel like a dark wash could have really amped the realism of the figure up quite a bit and improved the paint application, but other than that, again, it's a really nicely done figure. And another impressive aspect that is, again, something that you don't expect when it comes to these figures is the fact that the legs are not bowed really, and it stands really well. Like, it has a very nice balance to the figure in general. I mean, the left foot appears to have maybe a slight bow. It's a little bit turned, but for the most part, it does stand and balance really nicely, which is also something that you don't often see from this type of unknown dinosaur figure from eBay or Aliexpress. But again, as far as I'm concerned, is this accurate? Not even remotely, but is it a really cool version of a Spinosaurus? Absolutely. I love this figure. So if you would like to pick one up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on Aliexpress, where I purchased mine. So make sure you check the description, follow that link, and head on over there, buy yourself this really cool Spinosaurus, and make sure before you do all that, you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.